Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. I've been thinking a lot lately about like weird or like really bad games and otherwise fantastic franchises, and it got me thinking about making a cool list for that. So I wanted to go with the black sheep and otherwise great gaming franchises. Now this isn't to say that these games are not great in themselves. Some of them still will be really great games. They might just have some quirky mechanic or something that makes them completely different from the rest of their franchise. Some of these games will absolutely be really bad games in otherwise fantastic franchises. So I kind of want to meld them together here. We're talking about black sheep in their franchises. Some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list, mostly because of my inexperience with them, include DMC Devil May Cry, just because I'm not familiar with the franchise a ton. I do know why that game is such a big black sheep in the franchise, but I thought I'd leave that to somebody else. Or if you guys are interested in a follow-up list, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll do a bunch of research on the games that you recommend in the comments. Others that include, like, I think it was Travis Strikes Back in the No More Heroes franchise. You've got Chinatown Wars in Grand Theft Auto, which I actually love, but it's a weird top-down. I guess that's more like the original games, but it's an outlier in the newer games for sure, I guess. So I guess that maybe doesn't quite qualify. But another one would be like Metal Gear Survive, which is completely different because, of course, Kojima is not attached to it. So let me know in the comment section down below any other games that I've maybe missed off of this list, and let me know what you think of my list. With number 10, we'll start off with Hey Pikmin for the 3DS. Now this one is really weird because the Pikmin franchise is really fantastic. I think 1 through 4 are really great games in their own respects. I think the first one is a perfect like strategic survival game. I remember like sweating as a kid trying to beat that one. I think Pikmin 2 is the best in the franchise to this day. I think they have the best types and everything. I like the world that you're exploring. I love the collection mechanic. Number 3 was a really fun one with multiple protagonists. I like what they did with that one. And of course, 4 has Ochi, the good boy, and is really accessible. So I think the overall Pikmin has been a fantastic franchise. But Hey Pikmin is a weird one because it's a side scroller. Because it's on the 3DS, I don't know if they could really put like a GameCube style game like the original Pikmin on the 3DS. So they went with something much different, and it's okay. I think they probably should have called this one Okay Pikmin or just Okay Pikmin, because it's not that deep. It's a very like light puzzling game. The graphics are just so. I think it's a pretty middling game in an otherwise really fantastic franchise. So it's going to be here at the bottom of this list. Number 9 is going to be Donkey Kong Jungle Beat for the GameCube. Now I love this game. This game is actually one of my favorite Donkey Kong games. I love it with the bongos. They did do the new play controller with like on the Wii with the Wii remote and nunchucks. So there's a new way to play this one. I wish it would get like a port to the Switch, because that would be really sick. I'd love to see this one not only like get a port, but then get a new game in the franchise. It's just that much fun. I loved playing on the bongos. It was a really unique mechanic where you tap the right bongo, he moves to the right. You tap to the left, he moves left. Tap them together, I believe, he jumps. It's been a while since I played it. But if you use the clap for the sensor, he does a clap in the air, and he can like get bananas in a row. Like if there's bananas in like a little circle, he gets them and collects all of them. And the whole goal was to get as many points as you could and beat the boss at the end of each level. It was a really wacky, weird world. I loved the enemies. I loved the boss design. It was fantastic. But it is undeniably the weirdest game in the franchise. In a franchise that's pretty like inconsistent in terms of like what it is. You've got the platforming side and Rare, but then you've got like the old arcade games. You've got the DK64. You've got the new country games. There's so much like in terms of like consistency of the franchise. It does a lot of different stuff. To have this one stand out so much, you could include Donkey Konga. You could say Donkey Konga is definitely the most odd one out there, but I don't include that one because it's a rhythm game. I also don't include like Mario Dance Dance Revolution, because those are just maybe a little bit too different. Those are more like a spin-off game. So I'm going to be doing Donkey Kong Jungle Beat on this list at number 9 here. Number 8 is going to be Super Mario Bros. 2 for the NES. This is actually one of my favorite Mario games in the entire series. I think it's so much fun. I do like the new aesthetic. I think that's what makes it so charming and so replayable. And the fact that you can play as 4 different playable characters makes it really fun. I like experimenting with the different characters and what they could do. I always loved playing as Luigi. It's kind of where I fell in love with Luigi in the first place. This was a reskin of Doki Doki Panic, which I recently found out was like the original Doki Doki games were inspired by Mario in the first place. And so this is essentially always meant to be a Mario game, even though it was the West's Mario 2. I really like what this one does, though. I think it's fantastic, but it is definitely one of the most odd ones in the entire franchise by a long shot. It has weird enemies. This is where Birdo was first introduced, like a really quirky, weird character. You got some of the weirdest bosses that have like almost never made a return or made cameo appearances later on. So this one definitely is the most unique, and it definitely stands out the most. Number 7 is going to be Skyward Sword. I love Skyward Sword. I did a review on it. I called it a great game with terrible pacing. I still stand by that. I'm really glad it got remastered for the Switch so you could have the new play controls. I think it's definitely better that way, having the options at the very least. I think Skyward Sword does a lot really well, especially as an origin story for the hero of time here. I really like where it places in the canon and everything. I like the incarnation of Ganondorf and like seeing him in his first form. I think they do a ton well with this game, but it stands out because it was so like mixed, such a huge mixed reception from critics to consumers. Critics gave it rave reviews when it came out, citing the innovative controls and the new worlds and everything. And then users would say like it's really poorly paced, the mechanics are janky, it's really weird, there's a lot of backtracking, it's incredibly slow. And I agree with both sides. I think there's a lot to love about this game, there's a lot to hate about this game. I ultimately like it. I think it's in the middle of the road for my Zelda games. I put it in like, I think right in the smack dab in the middle of my Zelda tier list if you want to check that one out at some point. I think this one definitely fits the bill as the most divisive mainline Zelda game, at least. You could also point to Zelda 2. I think there is a case for that, but for my money it's going to be Skyward Sword. Number 6 is going to be Dark Souls 2. This is undeniably the weirdest entry in the FromSoft or at least just the Dark Souls series. I guess we could probably distinguish that and just say Dark Souls here. Dark Souls 2 definitely has the DNA of the series, but this was a departure from the original game because it didn't have the original creator helming this particular project here. And it definitely feels like the B team going to bat here. They did a fantastic job, especially in like the redesign with the Scholar of the First Sin, which is the version that I played. I think they did a lot to like clean it up and make it a better title. From what I understand, in the original game, a lot of people had a lot of gripes with it, but I think it's ultimately a very solid game, but it lacks a lot of what makes Dark Souls like feel so visceral and good. Every hit felt really cheap and almost like it wasn't actually connecting. I felt like hits against me sometimes would just go right through me and no knockback. There's just a lot of like lack of polish that makes it feel like it's a little bit out of place. Some of the writing feels a little bit even cheesier than like the other Dark Souls games. You definitely still have that in places, some of the voice acting and everything, but it feels like a much different game in a lot of ways. Some people hail the differences and say like this is the best game in the franchise, this is the best game from Software has done because it's so unique, because of the worlds, because of the content that you have. There is a ton to do in this world, but for me it definitely feels like a B team effort. They did a great job, but it definitely could have been more polished, and then it would have been higher up and seen less as this black sheep of the franchise. So it's going to stay here at number 6. Number 5 is going to be Resident Evil 6. Oh boy, this one. This one is a real stinker. As many times as I've tried to go and play through Resident Evil 6, I have yet to like fully finish the game because there are like multiple playthroughs that you can do. All of them feel kind of cheap. There's like no real focus on horror in this game at all. I don't think there's like, the beginning kind of has some scary moments for sure, especially in Leon's campaign. But they just really ditch everything that they had going for them in terms of the horror, and they dial up the action sequences to incredible heights, and that's not in a good way here. Resident Evil 6 takes everything that the series had built up and ran the wrong direction with it. They had a chance to go really hard into horror. Resident Evil 4 was like perfectly walking the line between horror and action. Resident Evil 5 veered off the wrong way, and Resident Evil 6 just careened off the cliff. This one just has no like liminal spaces, no real feel of tension or horror. It just feels like an action movie, and not a very good one either. That's the worst offense that Resident Evil 6 has. If it was just a great action game, then it would be maybe more excusable. They're going in a new direction. At least it's good, but it doesn't necessarily even feel like a good game. Like I said, I've yet to fully finish it, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, so it's going to be right here at number 5. Number 4 is going to be Sonic Boom. I really toyed around with this because Sonic is a great franchise. I think we can say Sonic as a franchise is fantastic. There are so many great games. It has so much longevity. It has like staying power in media. I think the great games outweigh the weird ones or even the bad ones, but there are a plethora of odd ones to pick in the Sonic pantheon. You could point at Sonic 06, you could point at the Black Knight, you could point at Shadow the Hedgehog if you want to count that as like a spin-off, but maybe like just adjacent enough that it counts. There's so many weird games in this series. There's too many to even count here that do different things, that do things that just don't work or like work sometimes but kind of suck other times. But I think the winner has to be Sonic Boom. Not only does it take everything that, like, all the lessons from Sonic 06 and threw them out the window and said, hold my beer, let's do it even worse. The redesigns are just abysmal. Like, it's absolutely crazy how they messed up character designs so poorly. So much so that they abandoned them completely. They said, you know what, we're not going with this direction ever again. It's just that bad. And thankfully, they've returned to their classic designs. But Sonic Boom not only was bad design, the game design was awful too. I've watched YouTubers, I think Alpharad did like a trying to 100% this game, and there are so many glitches and bugs. It feels like even worse than Sonic 06 in so many ways. It's the most unfinished Sonic game. And that, like I said before, that's a feat that they had to work really hard at doing because Sonic 06 was an absolute mess in every regard. But Sonic Boom topped that, and on top of that, it had terrible character designs. They just did everything wrong with this one. So I think Sonic Boom is the clear winner in standing out in the franchise in a negative way. Number 3 is going to be Star Fox Adventures. Now, this is one I am intimately familiar with. I absolutely loved this game as a kid, because I never played Star Fox. This was my first game in the Star Fox franchise. It felt very much like a Zelda game. I liked the sequences where you were in the R-Wing doing the dog fighting and everything. I had a lot of fun across the board. Some of the time I felt like it was like the writing was kind of bad. Obviously the voice acting and having their own made up language was not any points toward its credit. And then like the weird action sequences and the adventuring mechanics were just so different from any other Star Fox game. Most fans just really didn't like this one. I think there is a good game to like here. I think it feels very much like another game. I'm going to talk about this list, so I won't spoil it. But I think there is a lot of good here. The fact that this started off as a different game and then they put Star Fox on top of it really makes sense. It's very much a Mario Bros. 2 Doki Doki Panic type thing. This one started off as a different Rare game, then Miyamoto's like, hey, put Star Fox in there. I think it has the bones of a good game. It's just unfortunate that it had to be a Star Fox game, because Star Fox fans will point at this one and say, this is the worst Star Fox game because it doesn't feel like a Star Fox game. So this one is very divisive, because if you like the adventuring aspect of it, you're probably going to say this is a fantastic game with some weird voice acting choices and whatnot, and some weird choices in direction and everything. But if you love Star Fox, you're going to say this is the worst one in the franchise by far. So it's going to be right up close to the top at number 3. Number 2 is going to be Metroid Other M. Now, I could have said Federation Force for the 3DS. I could have. But Metroid Prime Federation Force is not a real game. That one does not count at all. I don't care what anybody says. I don't even care if Nintendo says that's part of the actual timeline. That game is nothing. That game is garbage. That game does not belong in the Metroid, collection at all. I don't understand why it even has the name on there. So I'm getting that one out of the way right away, because it has nothing to do with Metroid. It's just absolute garbage. So let's talk about Metroid Other M. I played this one on the Wii. I remember getting it. I thought it was really fun in the terms of the way it plays, but the way they portray Samus in this game is just so disjointed. It feels so so completely against everything else we've seen about the character and every other portrayal that she's been in, and any other lore we've gotten about her. Metroid Other M betrays that in almost every single respect. She comes across as completely different, not a complete very anti-leadership and very against everything that everyone's trying to teach her. And I think there is some element of that in some of the other games that we've seen, but not what they end up giving us in Other M. I think they kind of ruined the character in a lot of ways, and I'm glad that they kind of departed from that and just said, we're just going to ignore that and move on, because that was the right choice. They made Samus just a whiny, scared and not consistent character in this game. I think that's what most people hate about it, myself included. The gameplay elements are kind of cool. The way that it shifts between the first person perspective and the third person action adventure is actually fantastic. And I'd love for them to do something like that in the future, just as long as they don't ruin the character again. So hopefully we never see anything to do with Other M ever again, and we can just move on from it. So that's going to be number 2 on my list. With number 1 going to be Nuts and Bolts, Banjo-Kazooie here. I recently did a video on this talking about how it is better than you think it is, and I stand by that. I think there is a fun game to be had there, but very much like Star Fox Adventures, this is just not a Banjo-Kazooie game in the traditional sense. People that love the original games were betrayed by this new direction. It wasn't a spin-off game. This was in place of Banjo 3E. This is the game that everyone wishes was different. Again, if we'd gotten Banjo 3E first and then gotten this as a spin-off game, or even the next game in the franchise moving forward, I think it would have come off a lot better. But the fact that we had so much teasing for Banjo 3 and even like talks about it on the GameCube, and then it ended up being this instead so many years later, it just stung so much for so many fans. I even read a comment recently that I need to respond to still, saying like, yeah, I begged my parents for the Xbox 360 just so I could play this game. I wanted it so bad, and I finally got it, and it just broke my heart. And I could feel that. And I know what that feels like playing through this game. I remember my early hours in it thinking, this just sucks. I hate that this is actually a Banjo-Kazooie game, because I want something so different here. I think this is easily one of the most divisive games in a franchise ever, and it is the clear reason why the franchise did not continue going forward. It didn't sell especially well. People did not like the new direction, and Microsoft abandoned it because of that. So I think this is the clear winner for Black Sheep in any game franchise. But let me know in the comment section down below if you have any other ones, big Black Sheep and otherwise great franchises, really what I want to stick to. But I would love to know your picks. Let me know in the comment section down below what you have experienced, or any ones that I missed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.